Rio, on his early morning hunt to the seashore to collect some seafood, stumbles upon a shipwreck. Completing his Robinson Crusoe arc, he sees a man's body beside the boat and after checking his pulse realizes that his soul has permanently despawned from this world. Rio then notices another man named Abel on the other side of the wrecked boat. And thankfully, this guy is alive and breathing. A bit of backstory. Abel and a few other people were on a journey by this boat when a crazy thunderstorm erupted out of nowhere. In the midst of the thunderstorm, a titan octopus attacked their boat, causing everyone to drown as the boat broke into two pieces. Thankfully, the incident happened nearby, and that's how they washed ashore here. Currently, Rio has brought Abel, who's still unconscious, to his house and goes out to do some household chores. In the meantime, Abel awakens and wonders where he is. He walks out of the house to find a literal flower garden and a stone path in the middle leading to the forest, all made by Rio. Rio shows up, expressing how glad he is to learn that Abel is okay, even though he doesn't know who this guy even is. Abel, on the other hand, is shocked because he didn't sense Rio's presence at all. Does this mean he has a skill that allows him to scan his house and goes out to do some household chores? In the meantime, Abel awakens and wonders where he is. He walks out of the house to find a literal flower garden and a stone path in the middle leading to the forest, all made by Rio. Rio shows up, expressing how glad he is to learn that Abel is okay, even though he doesn't know who this guy even is. Abel, on the other hand, is shocked because he didn't sense Rio's presence at all. Does this mean he has a skill that allows him to scan his surroundings? In any case, what bothers Abel the most is Rio's die-hard Robinson Crusoe roleplay. He wants to ask Rio if he's a hillbilly who doesn't have any clothes, but then stops himself as he doesn't want to leave a bad impression on their first interaction. So, he politely introduces himself, expressing his gratitude and thanking Rio, assuming he saved his life. Rio, in reply, states that he doesn't deserve any praise at all since the only thing he did was carry him to his home. That said, Rio becomes serious, breaking the bad news that all of the others have passed away. Abel tells Rio not to feel bad for them, revealing that everyone else on his boat were smugglers. As he's about to go into details, his stomach growls, so Rio suggests they continue this topic while having lunch together. Now that they are acquainted, Abel asks Rio if he has no set of clothes. And Rio casually explains that he can't make any because he doesn't have the materials like thread or cloth needed to do so. Abel, in response, argues that Rio can just go buy some clothes from any nearby town, but then instantly realizes that Rio must not have any money with him since he's living the life of an exiled saint. Abel, of course, doesn't know where they are and is only assuming there are towns nearby. So Rio explains the situation to him, informing him that there aren't any towns nearby and that's why he's been forced to live like this. Abel asks Rio how he manages to gather food and stuff and becomes absolutely astounded when Rio reveals that he is a water magician. Abel is impressed because from what he knows, only 50% of people in the central province know how to use magic. This upsets Rio as he thought he was a bit more special since the angel Michael informed him that only 20% could do so. In any case, Abel wants to check something. So, he requests Rio to bring him back to the shipwreck again. When they reach the coast, they surprisingly find no bodies there, and Rio assumes that the bodies were washed away by the sea or eaten by some monsters. This just means if Rio hadn't saved Abel's life, Abel would have been eaten as well. So Abel owes it even more to Rio for saving his life and states that even though they are strangers, Rio is a true friend. Anyway, Abel searches the shipwreck, but fails to find the thing he came here for. So he makes changes to his plans, deciding to meet up with his friends at the town of Lon, which he assumes is to their north. He invites Rio to join him on his journey, stating he needs a guide since he doesn't know where Lon is. Rio has no idea himself, but still agrees to be Abel's guide and states that they can commence their journey tomorrow as he needs some time to prepare for everything. Abel accepts and shakes hands on this deal. Later in the evening, Rio bids goodbye to his Stardew Valley life and then goes out into the forest to also say farewell to Dullahan, the mythical creature that trained him. Rio tells Dullahan about his plans to leave tomorrow, but promises that one day he will return. He expresses how grateful he is to Dullahan for all the things he has done for him and decides to spar one last time with his guru. They go all out and after a long heated battle, Dullahan is unsurprisingly the one standing. Now that it is time to depart, Dullahan gives Rio a farewell gift, a proper main character outfit for this homeless loser. The next morning, Rio, now in his new outfit, begins his journey with Abel to the north, leaving behind his medieval solo life. On their way, they encounter a wild boar, and Abel steps up to deal with the situation. Although he can't use magic, he uses a sword skill to enhance his movement and impales the boar, slaying it with a single strike. The forest seems never-ending, and they have to set up camp that night beneath a large tree. They continue their journey the next morning and arrive near a pond where they notice a lizard-man couple having a private moment together in the distant water. Abel doesn't want to pick a fight with them, stating that lizard men are quite strong, so they take a detour to the left. However, Rio, using his detection skill, senses some creatures running toward them and suspects that the lizard men may have noticed their presence. Abel tells Rio to stay behind him, but Rio refuses as he senses many enemies approaching. Abel doesn't think Rio's magic will be of any use without a magic staff. But to Abel's surprise, Rio doesn't need one. He doesn't even need to chant any spells. In an instant, he summons several ice crystals and launches them at 4 approaching lizard men, taking them all out immediately. Within a few seconds, the entire fight, which the proud Abel couldn't end, ends easily. After Rio finishes defeating the monsters, Abel asks him what he just used because he hasn't seen that before. Rio doesn't think it is that special. All he used was a water lancer. He tells Abel it isn't special, but Abel feels otherwise, especially because he saw that Rio had invoked 4 lancers at the same time, contrary to his previous knowledge that mags can only invoke one magic at a time. He tells Rio he is concerned, and Rio indeed comments that he is ignorant of that fact. He tries to divert the entire conversation, but Abel insists that it works that way for the wind mags he knows. So Rio reminds him that he is a water maid. Before they continue their journey, Rio does an incantation and brings out water to drink. He reminds Abel that they are exhausted and they have a long day ahead, so they should drink water. Abel takes it, but he remains worried about something again. The incantations that Rio had done to invoke the water are quite different from the ones he is used to, but Rio doesn't give him an audience. They continue their journey, and as they get nearer to Luna, Abel gives Rio a coin that could be spent at Luna. Rio is so excited that is the first time he has held money since he got to that world. Seeing his excitement, Abel explains to him that there are several other currencies like that, and the currency is that of the Kingdom of Nightly, a kingdom that Luna is a member of. He further tells him that there are 3 cities in that kingdom: Luna, Hondello Federation, and Duhi Empire. Immediately, Abel mentions Duhi. Rio pauses, which makes him wonder if Rio had an interaction with the city before. He asks Rio, who says no. Rio was taken aback because of the name of the city. He feels the name doesn't sound good, and it wouldn't be good if he were a member of that city and introducing himself with that name. Good for him because he is indeed not a member of that city. They continue their walk and make jest about this. They walk past some rocks and Abel notices that a rock is moving. He attacks the rock and Rio joins into but realizes that they have entered into a rock golem nest. The rock keeps gathering itself, and Abel runs to stab it, but it regenerates. Seeing that Abel's sword isn't doing anything, Rio invokes a 10-layer ice rock and hits it on 2 of the rocks. It overpowers the rocks, so he proceeds to do the same for the other ones. When they get to the last one, he sees that the rock isn't moving. He realizes that it is because it is lying on its back. They get their power from the floor, and if they are lying on their back, they have no power. They also see a magic core under their feet, and Abel recognizes that the rocks must have killed several monsters. So, the cores are great. They decide to take it as their tour spoil, and Rio considers going to take from the other golems, but notices that the golems are fighting the ice rocks. So, they excuse themselves. They walk further and see another monster. Rio assumes it is just a frog, but Abel thinks it is a behemoth. Life doesn't even give them enough time to argue about what it really is. As they see several wyverns flying there, too. They are in the middle of a war zone, but they are also lucky. Since the behemoth is also a victim in that fight, they are sure it won't let the wyverns defeat it. They turn out to be right as the behemoth fights back with magic and wins. Rio is excited about the things he has encountered so far. That night, they set a fire and they talk. Rio teases Abel that he had thought Abel would fight the behemoth too and he would watch a round 2 of the fight. This boy is really wicked, but it is just a joke. They talk about the magic negation that the behemoth had used to fight, and Abel says he had only seen it as a trap in dungeons. The idea of a dungeon excites Rio, and when Abel notices, he asks him if he is interested in a dungeon, and he says yes. Well, he is so lucky because the only dungeon in the entire kingdom is at Luna, and that is the city they are going to. Rio teases that Abel had kept that a secret from him and didn't tell him from the beginning. But Abel insists that he didn't know Rio was interested in dungeons in the first place. When Rio insists on knowing the other things that Abel could be hiding from him, Abel asks him if he has seen dwarfs and elves before because he is indeed in luck. There are several dwarfs at Luna and they are quite strong. When he says this, Rio says he knows that already, and Abel wonders how he knew. He also says there is just an elf in Luna, and Rio insists he is familiar with that information too. They continue their journey into the mountain, and Rio informs Abel that after they cross that hill, they will find a human community. Abel doesn't expect Rio to know this information. So, he asks Rio again. Rio remembers that it was the dragon that told him when they were talking, but he also knows there is no way he could explain that to Abel and he would believe. So, he tells Abel to forget about it. As they continue their journey, a high-grade monster threatens them. When Abel feels its presence, he prepares to fight. But when he sees the mighty mountain in front of him, he gets so scared that he doesn't bother fighting and he has difficulty breathing. Luckily, Rio calls his attention and throws meat at the monster. After the bird swallows the meat, it leaves them. Abel sighs in joy that it is all over. He is glad that Rio could cover up for him. They continue their journey and wonder what is wrong with that area. The monsters they have seen there aren't monsters that humans should be fighting. There is something wrong in that hill. They remember that the wyverns had always flown from the north, so they assume that they are around the North Mountain. They peep towards the side of the hill and see several wyverns eating the carcass of another monster. They realize that they are right. Abel plans that they shouldn't fight, but Rio thinks otherwise. He thinks they should fight. And if they are fighting, it is best they fight now that the wyverns are on the ground. They go to fight and win, but they are confronted with several other wyverns flying towards them. Rio uses his magic to kill them from the sky. Abel goes for their gem. Abel is already excited about the fight. So when several other monsters come, he is so happy. By the time they are done with the fight, they look at themselves and smile. It is a great partnership. Let's see how the partnership will end.